let's jump into 2023 NBA draft stuff. This will be fun. I'm really excited to talk about all of these guys that we're going to jump into. We're going to talk about 6 guys. We're going to compare them in pairs of 3, essentially. NBA draft battles, comparisons between 2 players, why we're higher on one guy versus another, what we see is like the differing factors between the 2 of them. And we're going to jump into this. Okay, Mark. The whole purpose and premise behind this for me was I wanted to break down Jordan Hawkins versus Grady Dick. And they're floor spacers. They're guys who are going to generate high volume 3-point opportunities. They go about it entirely differently, I feel like, which is so interesting. And I think that honestly, like I do prefer one guy over the other, but I really, really like the other guy a lot. And I think that I'm probably higher on him than consensus. I think I'm probably higher on both of these guys than consensus, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, Grady Dick or Jordan Hawkins? Let's just start with this base level thing. Which one do you prefer?
Oh, Grady for sure. And I think that I want to follow that up too, just by saying like, the more I watch Jordan, the more I fall in love with him as a player and prospect. Like, I know you like him a lot too, and I'm excited to talk about him. But like, and that, so I just want to say, like, it's not to say that I dislike Jordan. It's more like I think Grady, calling him a sure bet or like safe bet, feels like it undersells his upside and potential. But like, I think with what you look at what the floor is, how he's improved over the year, um, that's a guy who's just become a no-brainer upper lottery prospect for me, or close to upper lottery, I should say. Like, I think top 10 lock for me is how I would put it.
I agree with you. I have Grady Dick in my top 10. I really like Grady Dick a lot. Do you think that there is a case for the way that Jordan Hawkins goes about creating his 3-pointers, sprinting off of screening actions, finding different flare opportunities, just the way that he goes about it, sprinting to the line in transition, stopping, popping, and getting that open 3? Do you think there is something about his ability to generate 3-pointers that is potentially a bit more translatable than Grady Dick, where Grady Dick, a lot of his opportunities right now, he's not a bad movement shooter. I don't mean this by any stretch of the imagination. I think he's going to be a really good movement shooter long term. We haven't seen quite as much of it from him as Jordan Hawkins yet. Do you think there is a case that Jordan Hawkins will be able to shoot threes at volume a little bit easier than Grady Dick?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think like the size is always going to play a factor for sure, and that's probably why people would consider Grady a better shooter. But I mean, you can make a legitimate argument that Jordan's the best shooter in the draft. Like you mentioned, like his difficulty, variety, everything on his threes is pretty ridiculous. And it's not just like, oh, well, he's doing this and, really being able to create things because of, like what other guys are opening up for him. It's self-creation without the ball in some ways because he's so outlier in what he does as a movement threat. Something I wrote about a year or two ago. And I think ironically, on another UConn player and how that, played out for him. Obviously, Jordan Hawkins is so much better than James Bouknight with the way that he moves without the ball.
Oh yeah.
Like James was just a better. Well, I don't even know if I would say James was a better athlete, better vertical athlete. But like in terms of the side to side stuff, I don't think it's super comparable. But point being, like I'm there with you. Like I think that part of why I've gotten higher and higher on Jordan is like you just don't find guys who are shooters like this. I think there's always this idea of like, oh, well, you can just find somebody in the late first who can shoot. I'm like, yeah, who can shoot standstill or maybe lift and hit shots, but like you do not find guys who can do this, like who can legitimately hit shots out of every kind of set, every movement, and be good at every single variety while having some room to expand out from there. And I'm not saying I'm there yet, but like he's a top 20 guy for me. And I don't think it's crazy if he maybe ends up like a lottery guy.
Yeah, I have him at 17 right now, so I'm like right in the middle of it. The next place I want to go to with this is defensively. I like Jordan. I like what Jordan can be defensively a little bit more than Grady. They're very different
Yeah.
defenders. Grady is a very smart team defender with great hands, great hand-eye coordination, who just seems to like read and react to things that happen around him. But where I think he struggles is in dribble handoff or like any sort of exchange, right? Where he has to communicate with a teammate essentially and make a rotation or make a switch or do something like that. Those are the areas where I think Grady can get in some trouble. With Jordan, I think Jordan's really good with all of the communication stuff. And I think he's actually really aggressive. And on top of it, I think he moves his feet super well. The problem is that he just doesn't really have the base right now. He's not strong enough. He gets bullied a little bit too often. But at the point of attack, I actually think he's kind of underrated in terms of just being like an aggressor and being able to get into guys' spaces. How do you evaluate these two defensively, and which one do you think that you like a little bit better long term?
That's a good question. I think that one's where it's tough, and that's where the size stuff comes in because I think for Grady, like you mentioned, like I think that there are things that he does really well defensively. I think that as he gets stronger and continues to improve with stuff, I'm interested to see um what that means for him as he continues to improve. But I think Jordan, I hate saying underrated, but like Jordan is a legitimately very good college defender. And I think it's in a way
Yes.
that can translate. Like you mentioned, I think he needs to get stronger. And I'm curious, what organizations feel like they can get him to. Like what is a healthy weight
Yep.
for him that we can get him to? Like I think that's going to be a really big thing that organizations are looking at. Like he was like 175 as a freshman. He put on a decent amount of weight prior to this year. I think you've seen that play out and be a good thing for him. But like, okay, it's
Yep.
like how much more can we get out of him functional strength wise is going to be really important for sure. But like even when teams try and quote unquote go at him, I think he's been really good at standing up. Like he's a very solid on ball defender. He plays with higher functional strength than I think you would expect from somebody who's 185. And his team defense really impresses me too. Like he's so good on stunts and digs into the lane. If there's a loose handle, he's going to attack it. But I don't ever really feel like he's going too crazy out of bounds with it. He navigates screens well. Like I look at him as like, yes, if somebody can really like isolate a 6'8" guy on him and get him in the post, yeah, that's going to be a problem. But like, do you know how much shit you have to go through to actually make that happen? I feel like that's so much more difficult to actually do as an offense and have it work out in the way that matters replicably than people give it credit for. Like,
It's for me, the ones that worry me are if you just like have him on ball and you can like come up and run a screen with Kawhi or someone like
yeah,
that. Not even Kawhi, maybe someone who's like not as strong as Kawhi, even like Jason Tatum, right? Like I would run like a 1-3 ball screen with Marcus Smart and Jason Tatum and try and get a switch with Tatum onto or Hawkins onto Tatum. And I think that Hawkins would struggle with Tatum's strength even right now
for sure.
at this point. Uh, Grady Dick, though, I think is like, I don't think Jordan Hawkins is going to be a magnet once he gets up to like 205, 210 in terms of, teams are going to like sprint at him and try and like get their best player on him. I do think Grady Dick on the ball, particularly, and by running him through a lot of exchanges, could end up being a little bit of a target. Now, I think he's really sharp as a team defender. I think he's really smart. And I think that like, there will be ways around that in a lot of ways, but I worry about him on defense more than I worry about Jordan on defense. Ultimately, the thing that makes me side with Grady here is I think Grady is just way better offensively as an overall prospect. I think that the shooting is going to end up being very close. I think Jordan is better at driving volume right now from the 3-point line because of his movement. But I think that Grady's super high release point is going to be an enormous factor as he continues to move up levels and continues to get better and better off of movement. I also think Grady is just more comfortable putting the ball on the ground and getting all the way to the basket. I think a lot of the stuff I see with Jordan isn't quite getting all the way to the basket. I think Grady is a little bit more comfortable right now, getting all the way there and actually making passing reads off of it. I do think Jordan's like a little bit of an underrated passer, not like an incredibly underrated passer, but he does show like the occasional high level read that I think he probably doesn't get enough credit for.
Yeah.
But with Grady, I think Grady can just like pass. Like he throws like one-handed live dribble passes while attacking closeouts. And I'm just like, oh, like that's going to work at the next level. Like that's going to just be really valuable.
Yeah, I agree. I think I might even be a little bit higher on Jordan as a passer. Like I think that I'm
Yeah.
not expecting him to like run an offense or anything like that. But I think like obviously like this is a guy who even if he gets run off the line, I tend to trust him to make the right decision. Like I think a lot's going to depend, like you mentioned, on for me, a lot of it's going to be strength. And again, like that's a buzzword, but like continue to improve his strength because I think that's his biggest
No,
hang up
like,
getting downhill right now.
yeah, with him, it really is all of like that is the swing skill. Like I actually think he can handle the ball now, like
Yeah,
at a
like I
pretty
think the handle
reasonable
is solid
level.
for him. Like he really
Yeah.
like if he gets run off the line, like he started to do some more stuff like, okay, what if I snake this? What if I, try and use my body a little bit to find an angle? And I think that's where you've seen some of his best passing stuff come out of. Like he's shown
Yep.
ability to handle some traps and doubles. Like I really believe in what he does with how he
Well,
sees the court.
yeah, for me, it's like the ability to maintain that advantage is
Yeah,
his
exactly.
problem.
Like he's not going to create the
Like,
advantage, but like I think he can maintain it.
well, no, I think it's the opposite. I think he
Oh, okay.
struggles to maintain it. Like, I think that the strength guys can kind of get back into the play more than anything else. I think that that is his problem. Like, he gets the advantage through the gravity of his shooting, and then he'll attack a closeout or something. And if someone can get back and just like physically bump him or something like that, it kind of just completely arrests his momentum in terms of getting downhill.
Yeah, that's fair. I think for me, as the years gone on, I feel like he's like again, like the finishing hasn't been amazing, but I think he's been better at getting downhill as the years gone on. And I like at least to me, like just with the stuff that we're talking about, maybe this is an incorrect read, but like for me, this is the stuff that I feel if you are somebody who has like is a hard worker, like obviously again, that's stuff that I can't gauge, that's stuff that a team has to gauge, but like I view that as stuff that can be repped out and worked on and improved
Yeah.
as a guy again, like gets stronger, gets more reps. And I think like with having a bankable skill with the level of shooting he has and being a guy who competes his ass off defensively and does pretty well, like I think that I like am pretty bullish on that being something that can really improve. Not that I think he's gonna be a star,
Yeah.
but like I think that there's like real value in him becoming a guy who can just continue advantages, be a high level floor spacer. I just see that with him.
Which of these two do you think has more star equity?
Star equity? Oh wow. See, that's tough because that's a different question than just like outright better prospect.
Yeah, I mean it's like a piece of the puzzle, but it's like it's not the puzzle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would. I think somebody would disagree with me, but I would say Jordan Hawkins. I think that Jordan, like, there's a legitimate chance where, like, if things just really pop, like, with, like, I mean, just being a guy who can shoot at that volume with that quickness, with that movement, like, I don't want to, yeah, I think that I would go with Hawkins.
So the case for Grady would be, do you think there is any like Klay Thompson-y offensive upside with him? Just high release point, quick release, being able to get it off that way. Like that's the star upside for Grady would be like Klay Thompson offensively, right?
Um, I
Or
think
the
it's,
vision at least. I'm not
yeah,
saying like that's what it will be, but like
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
what people
No, I get what you're
envision. Like,
saying. I think that is possible. Because I'm trying to think of like a different lane I would even go with him because I feel like I mean I never watched Clay at Wazoo. I wasn't around for
mhm.
that, but I think like if there's something there where he can. One thing I've thought about with him is like obviously if the handle can tighten up a little bit, like I think that really needs to happen for him to get better at getting downhill. But also too, like you mentioned with the high release point, like okay, what if he does become a guy who can mix in drives with post ups, like mix in like finding ways to okay, crowd
Yep.
dribble, use my shoulder, find ways to get to that high release point. And I feel like he's a guy who has such good touch that you can believe in that. So I think I could see that and feel like solid about what that could be. I don't have like a direct comp in my mind or anything, but I think like that's definitely possible for him.
Yeah, it's interesting because that is something that Clay like really took advantage of, you know. especially like by the midpoint of his career with the Warriors, was that ability to get to that post spot and just shoot over the top. And you're right, like that could be the thing for Grady to like be able to do it. This one is a little bit closer than I thought going into this. I will say that, and I'm glad we did this. I think that right now, based off of the size and based off of my concerns about Hawkins's frame, I would lean Grady Dick.
Still. Yeah, and I think I would agree with that.
But look, this is like what teams do. Like they sit around and like they literally bring up two guys and they're just like, hey, we need to talk through these two guys. Why this guy over the other guy? Right. And I think that as you talk through it more, sometimes you get some really interesting insights. And I think this is one of those examples where as we've talked through it more, I'm just like, oh, maybe Jordan Hawkins is like a top 15 guy, right? Like,
yeah,
maybe there is a little bit of that.